Hi, Dave with Align Therapy here. I'm here with Milena, who has been gracious enough to let me show a couple of things with her scoliosis curve. Today I want to talk about pelvic imbalance. Pelvic imbalance is something we see a lot of with scoliosis, and it's actually one of the signs that we can pick up that there is a scoliosis curve going on. So Milena has a pretty good pelvic imbalance that I want to show you. And if you look at Milena's back and we draw a line straight down from her neck, it doesn't quite hit the middle of her pelvis. It hits on the right side because her hips are shifted to the left. So one way we can see that, Milena, go and put your hands down by your sides. So if we look, actually it doesn't look too bad today. We look to see the space between her arm and her body on both sides. And most of the time we can see that that looks different one side versus the other. If I exaggerate her pelvic imbalance and we go here, then we can see that this arm is almost hanging off of her right hip and this arm is on her left hip. So go ahead and relax where you'd normally be. So you can kind of see that we have that pelvic imbalance, but that's one way we can find out if we have that, is the distance between the arm and the body. The other thing is looking at the waistline. So if we look at her waistline, we can see that the left waistline is a little bit different than the right. The right side goes a little straighter, the left side goes a little more curved, and that's because we have that shift of the pelvis to the left side. All of those things indicate that there's something going on. A lot of times people will say that they think their left hip is higher than their right hip, and it looks like that here when you just look at her hip. But if I put my hands on top of her pelvis, she's pretty level as far as where her pelvis is. I'll hear it a lot from general practitioners and chiropractors that, oh, we have a really long left leg, when we really don't, and it's just that the pelvis is shifted. So, Milena, go ahead and turn and face this mirror here. So, if you have scoliosis, or you wonder if you have scoliosis, one thing you can do is look in a mirror and see if you have that pelvic imbalance. So, like with Milena, if we look at her, well, now we can see the window difference between the two sides. So we can definitely see that there's a difference in the pelvis, that she's poked out on the left side a little bit, and that's because of that she has a lumbar curve, actually a thoracic lumbar curve, that goes to the right side. Because it curves to the right, as it comes back to midline, it pushes her pelvis off to the left side. So her trunk wants to sit over here, and her pelvis wants to sit to the left. So again, if we drop a line down, we'll see that it doesn't quite match up with the middle of the pelvis. So if we're correcting the pelvis, one thing that we want to do is just shift the trunk so that it's centered over the pelvis, so that the waistline is the same on both sides, so that the trunk is centered over the pelvis, and that we see a symmetrical window on both sides between the body and the arm. So if you're noticing that you have a pelvic imbalance, look in front of a mirror and see if you can correct that. See if you shift your trunk over, if you can correct for that pelvic imbalance. If you can, fantastic. It's something that I would want you to be more aware of, and that you can kind of keep tabs on that. A lot of times what we see is when someone has a pelvic imbalance like this, they'll kind of stand with their hip poked out on the left side. Women, when they have babies, will kind of rest that baby here on this side because it's easier, because there's kind of a natural shelf. So if you're noticing that that's happening, you're going with your scoliosis curve, not fighting against it. So being aware of what's going on is really helpful prior to being able to do something about it. So that's our pelvic imbalance left to right. There's also a pelvic imbalance from the side. Maybe let's look at that. If we look at it from the side, relax all the way, Milena. So if we look here, we should have a normal lordosis, or a curve in the low back here, and a kyphosis, the curve up top that goes this way. A lot of times we'll see an increase in lordosis and we'll see a reduction in kyphosis, which actually isn't there with Melina, but here we see her pelvis wants to go forward. So we can also correct for that here, correct for the side bone, and then we're a little more balanced over the pelvis. So hopefully that was helpful when you look at pelvic balance, and thank you, Melina, for being the model for this. And if you have questions, go to our website. We have a lot of answers there, or you can ask us directly. Thanks.